Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee, your tea, sit back, and let's chat a bit about what is going on in the stars and in the planets and in all of the astrology types of things that we talk about here: human design, the gene keys, regular Western astrology. It's good to be with you all this morning. It is a very foggy, eerie, Halloweenish looking day out here. So my room feels dark to me, even though I can tell by looking in the camera that it's not necessarily dark, but it feels kind of close. And we have a lot to talk about today. And have you all ever had days where you feel sort of like there's just so much you want to say, and it's going to be one of those times where it's difficult to get all the words out. So bear with me today. I'm using a different format. I'm using a format this morning that I usually use when I have a guest. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have some graphics that I want to be able to show you this morning during our chat. And so it feels a little weird to me anyway to be in this kind of broadcast studio, but with only me as the person. so like I said, bear with me here. And good morning. I see people popping in now. And this, of course, is Friday. So we have a lot to talk about in terms of we've got the weekend report that I want to get out to everybody. We have the midterm election chart, which I've been dying to share with you all. But, trying to wait a little bit so that, we could have it in perspective, perhaps, as opposed to me doing it 6 months ago and then everybody going, what? So we're going to be working with that this morning as well. Let's see who we have out there while we're waiting for everyone else to get here. Good morning, April. Good morning, Colleen. It's good to see the two of you. So let's do a quick check-in with everybody, because yesterday I rolled out a sort of primer, if you will, or primer, whatever that word is, on human design. And when we were talking about that, I realized there's so much to that, and a lot of that vocabulary and a lot of the concepts in human design are so different from astrology that maybe some of you went away with questions. So I want to clean that up first. Colleen, you have nothing to be afraid of. She said she was a little afraid of the midterm election report. No, but I have something really interesting that I saw this morning that I want to share with everybody too. So before we get to there, let's just do that quick check-in. Anybody left with any questions hanging in their mind about human design, how it differs from regular astrology, stuck on a concept, something I might have said yesterday where you just can't get it out of your head? Let me know in the column over here. Let me just say, for everybody listening and tuning in right now, you have nothing to worry about. Unless, of course, you want things to stay the same. If you want things to stay the same, then you might as well just get going, because it isn't going to stay the same. That is one thing you see for sure in the chart. And I'm going to show it to you. We're going to break it down and we're going to look at it as objectively as we can. Okay, so I've got that for you this morning as well. Okay, so let's see, who else do we have? Good morning, Cindy. It's good to see you out there. And I'm not seeing any questions popping up. So I am going to assume that everybody has at least a fairly good understanding of what we talked about yesterday in human design. However, if questions pop up, you can go ahead and write them in there, and I'll be happy to answer them. You have to know that that type of astrology, it's like a whole new language, right? When I first was learning astrology, I had to learn a whole new language or remember it, and as such is the case for me. In human design, however, I had to sort of learn all of this language again. Like, what did it mean to be conditioned to? What does it mean to be a manifester? A human design consultant is even different terminology than astrologer. So there was a lot for me to learn. Cindy, you can, yeah, on my Living-Astrology Facebook page, Cindy, is the recording from yesterday, so you can still listen in. And for a lot of you, you've heard me talking about human design for a long time now, so it may not have been that new. But some of you are real new to the human design world, and it is the basis for the work that I do in the gene keys. So I really need you to understand human design so that I can go into the gene keys knowing that you guys that we're sort of on the same wavelength. Let's see what's going on. Mimi, ladies, free yourselves from the fear. Set the intent. We need to regain balance, truth, and justice. Yay! Very good, Mimi. Colleen, I subscribe to both your podcast and YouTube, so I probably will re-listen. Very good. Okay, I will after this one, Cindy says. All right, so for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, my name is Janet Hickox. I'm an astrologer, human design consultant, and an upcoming, soon-to-be Gene Keys ambassador. Or maybe I am already. It's just the process is not complete until next month. And wow, that is closer than it seems, isn't it? And for the last 9 months, I have been doing a deep dive into the gene keys and learning about myself as a process in the process, clearing out a lot of stuff that I've had in my own field. And hopefully then I can help you all do that same thing for yourselves. And we'll see how that plays out here over the next couple of months. We've already been talking about the gene keys. I think a lot of you are very familiar with it. So it will be just deepening our understanding of it, diving a little bit deeper into who we are. And not only that, but a deliberate co-creation with spirit at that point in really driving us ourselves out of that shadow and up into the gift frequency of the gene keys. So that's the next step that we go through, right? So in the meantime, we're trying to get everybody on the same page so that we're at least talking the same language. All right, so nobody's asking any big questions, so I'm going to move on here. So I have a lot of different things that I want to talk about. First of all, let's talk about the astrology for the weekend, get that out of the way, and then we can move on to the other things. For those of you who are doing the journaling experiment with us, with Tam and I have your weekend forecast for you. It will be as soon as I get done here today talking to you, I'm going to go to my email and I will email you all out this particular chart. And I'm going to send it to the broadcast right now. So what you should be seeing sitting next to me, and I'm going to put it front and center here. Can I do that? Solo it. There we go. And I apologize, the top is cut off just a bit. The only thing at the top that you're missing is the name of the chart, which we are starting to call Astro Inklings. Cannot take credit for that. That was all Tam, but I love it. Astro Inklings. So here is an artist's representation of what I am now going to share with you about the energy for the weekend. And I like the way that this is just for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, basically. And she left this space here for everyone to journal their experience of the weekend in. And I kind of like it that way. Although when we do a weekly one of these, we won't be able to do that. There won't be room on the page because there will be so much more information she needs to bring to us. So as we look at this particular, I'll let you guys keep looking at this while I talk about what is going on. First of all, let's start with today. The moon is still in Aquarius and it is void of course. That means today is not a really good day to start something new, right? So it's Friday. Yay! Let's clear off our desks. Let's close out the projects of the week if we can. Let's bring things to a close, or if you want to, take the day off. I actually have a full schedule today, so taking the day off won't be exactly something I can do, but it's an easier day. I like to keep Fridays sort of fluid for myself, and this is a reason why, partly because we have void of course moon, and it will leave void of course at 1:21 p.m. my time, so that would be about 4:21 your time on the East Coast, so really most of the day. And at the point that the moon changes, it will move out of Aquarius and into Pisces. And therein is the beginning of the weekend. And I love to have the weekend with the void of course, or with the moon in the sign of Pisces, because Pisces is so compassionate and loving and creative. It's really great energy. In a way, it takes our mind and our hearts and kind of aligns them in a way where we can be more spiritual, we can be more romantic, we can be more creative. So I see this weekend being very calm and very maybe creative for you all. This is also a very intuitive kind of weekend because not only is the moon in Pisces, but beginning today, Mercury is in a trine. That is a 120-degree angle. Think, triangle, and it is an ease and flow of the energies. The relationship then between our messenger planet Mercury and our higher self Neptune is such that it brings us messages. It brings us into more and more intuitive awareness. So for some of you, that may equate into more dreaminess, dreams, literally, to maybe hearing more voices, or just the voice of spirit on your behalf, trying to align you with what it is that you're here to do, who it is you're here to be, maybe infusing you with more creative energies, more need to be romantic. I think it's a great weekend to sit back, watch some movies, read a good book, maybe take a romantic getaway, go somewhere fun. No big decisions this weekend. Too cloudy, right? It's just too cloudy. When Mercury is in the mix with Neptune, and in the sign of Pisces is where Neptune is. So it's already, empowered to be a little bit less clear. And the last thing you want to do is make a big decision because things might be so foggy. And how interesting that out here, in my outer world, it's very foggy. And that sort of sets the stage for the weekend, right? Fogginess. So you don't want to get involved in anything that seems to need your logical mind, or anything that needs you to be all the way there. It's almost like a part of us is engaged in spirit, or, sort of straddling both the physical world and the spiritual world. And big decisions need you all the way, feet planted firmly on the ground here in Earth. And I don't think that's available for most of us for the weekend. So put it off till Monday. When the moon moves into Aries on Monday, you'll have plenty of ability to take action, right? So enjoy this weekend and just play, right? I have a birthday party to go to tomorrow, which includes swimming, and I don't know. Oh, I don't know what else is going on. The weekend is open. I like that, right? It's not as clear what I have to do, so I have more space to play and have some fun. So you see that reflected here in Tam's weekend drawing, as she says. I love the way she says that word. You see it first, mind and hearts align with love. Pisces is a sign that takes us to that extraordinary energy of love, the all-encompassing kind of love that embraces both the romantic kind, but the platonic as well as the generalized energy of love, right? The bigger LOVE love. Saturday, she's got the little check boxes, right? About being creative, be together, no big decisions. So she actually has it all here for you, and the little space then for you to observe, write in what your observations are of how you experience the weekend. Now, why would you want to do that? I think you want to do that because you want to know your experience of the weekend or of the moon in Pisces may be different from mine, may be different from your neighbors, etc. And it would be really good for you to note, how are you experiencing this energy this weekend, right? How are you experiencing it? So for those of you that are in my little study group, a test group, it'll be very important for you to write those observations down, right? Because we're going to want to know later, maybe 1 month from now, when the moon gets back into Pisces, can I predict what is good for me that weekend or that day? It won't be the weekend necessarily next time, right? So I think all in all, we have a really good weekend. We've got to get through today's void of course, and we don't have to deal with another void of course then until the 21st, which is Sunday. And it is from late in the day until late in the evening. Who cares? At that point, we're already at home relaxing, hopefully, right? We're not busy doing anything in particular except maybe getting things ready for Monday, which would be a good use of the time. So a great weekend ahead, albeit maybe rainy in some parts of the country. Pisces is a water sign, and that can mean, rain. It can mean a lot of, dampness, like here where I've got this fog out here. So just be prepared for that type of thing weather-wise. Any questions about any of that? Donda says, thank you. Was thinking I should go to a movie. Do it. Go to a movie. Go see the movie. Oh, wait, that was an older movie. Rent the movie or, download it. The Shape of Water. That's on my list this weekend. I want to watch that movie because it keeps popping up in my outer world. Cindy says, I did mine, but I am trying to figure out how to get it back to you. You do not need to get it back to me, Cindy. This is for you. This is a tool for you. All I want you to do is hit reply to living-astrology111@gmail.com and give me some insight into how you experienced this. Right? Did you note that you were in alignment with this? Was this a difficult thing for you to do? Did it help you in some ways? Did it save your butt from getting into trouble because you knew ahead of time what was going on in the astrological weather? That's what I want you to do. Okay. You don't have to share. I want you to be able to use this for yourself, which means that you have to, be okay with writing down private thoughts and not being afraid that I'm going to have them or anybody else is going to have them. Okay. So I don't need the journal. I just need you to tell me what your experience is of doing this, your observations. And you don't have to wait till the end of the week. Just as you're going through it, I want to know, hey, Janet, thanks so much. Janet and Tam, thanks so much for, letting me know not to make big decisions because, blah, blah, blah happened. And you can do that throughout the week. You don't have to wait until just one day a week. I want it to be as interactive as possible, but you do not have to share with me your deep dark thoughts or experiences. Okay. So just keep in mind, just keep the lines of communication opened. Okay. I don't see anything else. Okay. So let me take this out of here. I want to share something with you before we get into the midterm election chart, because I can just feel you guys are all excited about this and want to know, right? But I want to share with you something that just was like, this morning. And it hit me kind of, like sucker punched me, right? I felt sucker punched by it. Only because I could see the truth in it. And sometimes when you see the truth of something, you know how you react, sort of, you get that gut, oh God. Yeah. Okay. Well, I got that feeling. So what I'm going to do here is, oh, how fun. I can add a poll. That's new. I want to share my desktop screen. Let me see so bear with me for just a moment, because share. Now, can you guys tell me, are you seeing my desktop? Somebody out there in La La Land, tell me. Oh no, to broadcast. Here we go. There we go. Now you should be seeing, and I'm going to try to make it just the only thing that we see. Hold on for one moment while I find it again. Solo. There we go. Now I know what you guys are seeing because I can see it too. So this was an article that was in Time Magazine, or at least I got it from Time Magazine. So I want you all to look for it. I may send you the link. In fact, I think that's a really good idea. I'll put the link. Hold on, let me get that link. And this happens to be in Yahoo, but like I said, it was an article from Time, and it is fascinating. And I mean, just look at the title. Women achieved enormous power in ancient Egypt. What they did with it is a warning for today. And essentially, the article goes into this idea of women in Egypt were prominent. We know we've got some of the queens of Egypt. But what this woman brings to the surface here is that the women in Egypt were really only figureheads in propping up the patriarchal government that they lived in. Take that in. They were only there as puppets, basically, propping up the patriarchy. And for instance, a queen, and I really want you all to read this if possible, that the queen was really only there as a figurehead until the son got old enough to be able to become the king, or until another king could be appointed or could be brought to the forefront. Or a queen was only allowed to be there as long as she had a consort, right? A male counterpart. And I want you to think about that in terms of where we are today, right? We are on the brink, ladies, of being able to, and men, if you're out there watching as well, of bringing more feminine energy into play. But are we going to bring it into play only as a support to the current patriarchy? Look at Susan Collins. Look at Lisa Murkowski. Look at some of the Republican women, other women out there, and what did they stand for? Were they propping up the patriarchy, or were they running their own identity out there into the world, their own values out there to the world? Right? I would argue that it is very easy for women to get into government, to get into positions of power, and then do exactly what their male patriarchal counterparts want done, lining up with the cause. I was so shocked by Susan Collins. And I was really shocked by any woman who chooses to support a man who very clearly has demonstrated his misogynistic tendencies or um, values counter to equality. And I'm not going to name names here because, we all know really who I'm talking about, but why are we women supporting these kind of men? Why are women getting into government and supporting or propping up the patriarchal agenda? I'm not necessarily down on the patriarchy. I just want it to be equal. I want the voices to be equal, where we're working toward values that support men and women, male and female energies, patriarchy and matriarchy, where it's not even an archy, like of those kind, where it's, that feels hierarchical. So this article sent chill bumps down my spine. So I hope you all will read that in light of what I am about to share with you in the chart for the election day. So let me quick put that away. How do I do that? There we go. And now hopefully you're seeing me. I'm going to leave that link will be on the page so you can follow that and follow it now even if you want to, and just bookmark the article so you can come back to that article and read it, because to me it was really craziness. Okay, I'm going to hide that for now. Okay, so let's take a look. What I've done this morning is what I usually do every morning. I get a chart and I write all over it. And you all don't usually get to see that handiwork because I don't have a way to do that when I'm solo typically. But today I'm going to show you my handiwork on this chart. And I don't want you to get all bugged out by it because I write sort of things that come up to me while I'm talking, or while I'm looking at things. So broadcast, there we go. So right now you should be seeing me and this chart that's rather messy. So let me break it down. What I did is I and in a minute I'm going to pull me out of here so you'll just be able to see the chart. What I did was I drew up two charts because I wasn't sure what timing I wanted to use. This chart is based for Washington, D.C., the seat of our government. And so I figured that was the best place to put it, not necessarily New York or Washington or L.A. So I chose Washington, D.C. And I did two charts. The first one I did for noon. And then I went, but wait a minute, I think I really rather take it for when the polls close. And for the most part, the polls close in Washington, D.C. at 8 p.m. So I set the chart for 8 p.m. And now I know that the polls, for example, on the West Coast won't be closed yet, nor in the Midwest or any, places west of the Eastern time zone. But I thought it gave us a really good idea of how the election is rolling that night. So that's what it's set for, 8 p.m. East Coast time for Washington, D.C. So let's take a look at some of the things that I see here. And I'm going to pull me out right now and make this solo. So now you should just be seeing this chart. Please forgive my handwriting. Like I said, I sort of think out loud and I just write whatever it is I see. So I want us to start over here with some of these big election aspects. You're going to see my conclusions down here or my outcome at the same time, but I want to support that conclusion. My conclusion says change. And it says a return to civility and core values. Does that mean that that day after everything becomes more civil? No, but we begin the process of it. So there's your outcome, right? Your outcome is assured. There's a change in the winds. Let's look at the supporting evidence. So the election aspects, remember this week we talked about in Astrology 101, the aspects are sort of like the spice that we throw in, right? The bigger ideas here are we have the planet Jupiter, which represents growth and expansion, the sky god, right? The idea of the bigger picture. And it is in a minor yet powerful aspect with the planet Uranus. Uranus represents change, revolution, rebellion, doing things counter to the way things have been done. So it's about nonconformity in some respects. A quincunx, which is the aspect, is a 150-degree relationship that these two planets have. And it's difficult. This is a difficult kind of aspect. When it shows up in your own chart, in your own life, it really points to the need for you to change something, for you to become more adaptable in some way, for you to adjust your thinking, your actions to be in alignment with something different. And there's a realignment that happens when you have a quincunx. Sometimes it's a sacrifice. Sometimes you have to let go of something in order to more clearly connect with something. So we have one giant, in fact, this aspect, even though it's a minor one, is the one that's in the closest proximity to one another. So when astrologers look at planets in relationship, the closer they are together, the more effective it is. So in other words, if a planet is in a 0-degree relationship with another planet, that means they're literally on top of one another, right? In this case, Uranus is at 29 degrees, 59 minutes of Aries, and Jupiter is at, Jupiter's at 29 degrees, 40 minutes of Scorpio. So they're very tight, very tight. They're basically sitting in the same place of their respective signs. It's the signs that don't get along so well, right? Aries likes to go its own way. It's impulsive. It likes change. It's bold. And that's where Uranus is in. Remember, Uranus in Aries over the last 7 years brought us things like Occupy, the Occupy movement. It brought us the Arab Spring and countries one after another falling to their governments changing. It brought us the out of sort of some of the darker moments of governments and into being able to see things in a new way. Now, it doesn't mean that the world changed dramatically, but in a way it did, right? It gave us a new start. It gave us this energy of becoming more independent. And so we're revisiting that, right? Because 29 degrees of Aries is our revisiting, or Uranus revisiting the energy in Aries that brought that kind of revolution. If I only looked at that aspect, it would be what I see as the main reason that change will occur that night. Venus retrograde, the next one, Venus retrograde in an opposition to Uranus. You see these black lines here? This first black line here with the orange planet highlighted, that is the planet Jupiter. And up here is Uranus. That's the 150-degree angle. Now here, this is the planet Venus in retrograde opposing Uranus. And those two are maybe 2 degrees from one another. So it's not as tight, but it's still very, very effective. Venus retrograde opposing Uranus is returning us to our core values, right? It's bringing up the power of the #MeToo movement. And excuse me, and this idea of women who are tired of being marginalized, objectified, and abused, misused. It is the women rejecting misogyny, right? It is women and men as well. Believe it or not, there are a lot of men on the side of, making this change. There's just these few men hanging on with the grip of, their fingertips and their teeth digging in, holding on. You guys can't see me, but I'm holding on to, their cherished patriarchy, their cherished values that include women not being equal, that include them being masters of the universe and powerful, and leaving out the people, marginalizing not only women, but other races, right? Other belief systems. So it is the epitome of our polarization that is changing, right? But like all things, it takes time. Venus is retrograde. She's retrograde. In an article I was reading, somebody pointed out that Venus has only been retrograde 7% of the time that we've had an election. So we don't have a lot of experience with what happens in a midterm or any kind of election for that matter when we have Venus retrograde. But I can tell you it has happened in a way at times to reestablish the, I want to say compassion, values, right? The mothering instinct. The last aspect I want to share with you is Venus conjunct Ceres, and they're very tight as well. I would say they're almost as tight as the Uranus Jupiter quincunx. But to me, because most astrologers don't use Ceres very often, she's not always valued in the same way that I would value her, for example. Well, to me, she's the mother goddess, and Venus is her daughter, right? So Ceres, the mother, and Venus, the daughter, and Moon in this case, in a feminine sign of Scorpio on that day, banding together to bring forth the values of the feminine. So even if I didn't have the other two aspects, I could see right here that there's a support here to the hashtag Me Too movement, but it's deeper than that, right? It's deeper than the abuses we may have suffered. Marianne Williamson said something very interesting in this last week's talk that she did Tuesday. And that, the hashtag Me Too movement, for as profound as it has been, is also leading us to become victims of this past experience, right? And there are women in other countries who do more than us as American women, who suffer much more horrible things than we do and I don't want to undervalue or understate the abuses that women here in this country have experienced, or any woman for that matter. But we've got to get beyond that victim of the hashtag Me Too and onto now, what do we do with that? How do we claim our power, and how do we rise up and use that anger, that energy of, we're tired of this, and use it in profoundly positive steps forward? Otherwise, we're doomed to remain sitting here in the victim pity potty. And I don't want that. You don't want that. So when we're voting this year, this season, make sure your vote is being, we don't want a weak woman in there. We don't want, and I'm not saying that Susan Collins is weak, but we don't want a woman puppet in there who's just going to be propping up the same patriarchy. We want women who are dynamic. We want women who are forward thinking. We want women in power who are here to support the core values of the country, not this little tiny slice of values that have been supported in the past. And we have that opportunity now. And your message as an individual to your people that you elect should be, we want that. Not because of the hashtag Me Too movement. We want these values to be expressed in our world. Right? It goes back to, what is our intention here? If your intention is to just be a figurehead to prop up the patriarchy, no, we don't want you. But if your intention is to make real change, starting at the bottom and moving up, or starting at the top and moving down, whichever way it goes. We want you. If not, we don't want you. Right? So we don't want more of the same. We want change. And I believe that that is the conversation that we have to have. Right? It isn't enough just to put women in power. We want the right women in power. And we want the women that we do elect to hold fast to the values, the core values of nurturing. I want you to notice in this chart that over here on the right side, which is actually the left as I'm looking at it, the 9 o'clock position of the chart, the ascendant or rising sign is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. It is also mothering, nurturing, protective energy. It goes back to those things that I told you about in human design. It is the women that lay down the values and lay down the laws and the rules by which a society is going to work. It is the job of the masculine to enact those rules, those laws, and to support them and protect them. So until the women rise up and claim what it is that we desire, then we have this ambiguity going on, where it's easy for someone to come in and, be elevated to the level of president of the United States, having done and participated in all of these kinds of ugly activities, abuses, and of all sorts, right? It's too easy for that to happen when we, the women, lose sight of the core values that we want to see in the world. Okay. Let me get off my soapbox for a minute. And then I want to call your attention to this very bottom part. Let me see. I'm going to get me out of the picture again. How do I get me out? I'm going to go here, solo. Right down here, this little box. This little box tells us about the nature of the energies, right? What elements are they in? Air, fire, earth, water. And then also, what quality are they expressing? Initiating energy, fixed energy, or which stays the course, or adaptable, mutable energy. And I want you to look at that because there were 11 or 10 planets in water. And there are 11 planets in the cardinal signs. Something new is happening, and it's in the feminine sign of Cancer. So the whole overall filter that we're looking at for the election chart is about women, is about nurturing, is about taking care of, is about being compassionate to. And that includes the earth, our children, our cherished values, right? Our food. The conversation shifts dramatically here, as it should, right? As it should. This is a chart that's huge in terms of the impact, I believe, that it can make. But it is going to have to be all of us that remind our elected leaders why we put them there. Why did we put you there? We put you there to realign the values of this nation, right? To realign the core values, to go back to, this is a Cancer country. Our birthday, July 4th, Cancer, right? And our forefathers laid out values, core values. Now, granted, at that time, it was a different world, and some of the languaging was a little odd, right? I know there's a whole group of men out there, small, that believe that women have no power because the Constitution said it was about men. Men had the power, the right to vote, etc. That was an artifact of the times, right? If you're going to say all men are created equal, don't you think maybe our forefathers really meant all people? I don't know. So there are these little minor groups out there that like to bring that up. We are beyond that, right? All right. So also, the one thing that really disturbs me a bit about this chart is that the election happens literally just hours before the new moon. So we are in the closing phase of the previous moon cycle. So the previous new moon would have been in I didn't even look that up. Holy cow, I can't believe I didn't look that up. The previous new moon would have been the one in October. Let's see, the new moon in October would have, no, that would be the full moon. So the new moon, yeah, that would be the last new moon, the one in October, October 8th in Libra. I like that because it means maybe what we're seeing is the letting go and releasing of anything that's not harmonious, of bringing things more into balance, right? That's what that new moon was about. Now we see the election day in the closing phase of that new moon. And then we get the new moon in Scorpio just a couple of days or a couple of hours after that. So maybe that does work for us. The moon that day is in 6 degrees of Scorpio, the sun at 14. So we're literally only 8 degrees away, which translates into about, let's see, the new moon actually of November. I pulled that out. The new moon in November is on the 7th at 8:02 a.m. Pacific time. So that makes it 11:02 a.m. East Coast time. So the day dawns anew, or the morning becomes something of new. And there's one other thing that makes me a little concerned. And up here at the top of the chart, you see that this bold line right here. I hope you guys are seeing my pointer. If you're not, there's not much I can do about it. Just look up at the top. I circled it and I wrote unclear, deceptive results not known. And that's because, let me solo this again for a moment. Up here, up at the top, Neptune is at the midheaven of the chart, and Neptune clouds things over, makes things hard to see, makes it a little deceptive. There may be, some deception going on, some things exposed that aren't positive. I'm not sure exactly, but I do know this. When Neptune is at any planet that's up at the midheaven has the most power of the chart, and Neptune has the most power here. So, and in a sign it rules, and these are feminine energies, right? Pisces is feminine energies, and it is kind of a cue perhaps that there may be some races that we can't call, that are too close to call, or that maybe have recounts or runoffs. I kind of expect that that may be the case. And if that's the case, then we would see, some delay in actual results, or what the final disposition of the election is. And is that new? No, that's not really new, because we've had this issue going on in the past with past elections where races were too tight to call, or the other person refuses to yield, and so it forces a recount. It depends, because there are different races going on. These races could also go down. I could pull a chart for each of the states that the close calls are in. So this is really a very complex situation. And we have, in this term, we're not necessarily looking at a presidential election where the whole country is electing, the one person that will lead the nation. We're looking at 50 states that in various ways and means have elections going on, where they're sending a new person to Congress perhaps, or a new person to the Senate. And so it's a little harder to call 100%. So this is the closest we can get, is looking at the general mood of the country. So when we're looking at this chart, we see that the sun often represents the president, if you will, the leader of the nation. If we're looking at this as a national chart, then that sun is representing the sun is representing the president, and it looks to me like he is the cause, ultimately, the deciding factor. His behavior, his past, his beingness is the cause of the way the vote goes. And that to me, that's an interesting that's just interesting, right? Because we all know how he's viewed by most people. And I think we're going to see a lot of people coming out to vote, and their vote may be a stinging rebuke of those in power, but in particular, the President of the United States. And clearly, here we have women with the advantage. The feminine energy is clearly at an advantage here. And what if it is women of color, women, single mothers, mothers in general, who come out and vote, right? That come out and vote that maybe they don't normally vote. And if you're someone like that who does not normally vote, get out there and vote. It's your voice, right? It's your right. It's time for us to stop sitting in the background. I remember when I was this is the weirdest thing I think that ever happened to me as a kid in terms of politics and what have you. I remember having a conversation with my parents as I was nearing 18 and getting ready to be able to vote. And I asked my mom who she was going to vote for. And she said, well, whoever your dad votes for. And I just looked at her. I went, what are you talking about? She goes, well, if I voted for someone different, then my vote doesn't count. Then I've split my vote. And I still to this day do not, on one hand, I get what she was saying. Like, I've just canceled out his vote, or his vote cancels out mine. But that's absurd. Every vote counts toward the people you want to support, irregardless of how your spouse votes. And I'm hoping that that was just something unique, maybe in the 60s and 70s as I was growing up, and that, because they were older, it was an artifact of the 40s and the 50s mentality. I'm so hoping that that's what it is, and that there aren't women out there still today saying, whoever it is that he votes for, I vote for. Yikes. Vote your own vote. Vote your own heart. Vote your own mind. Don't vote just because. Don't vote because you think that, that's who your spouse would want you to vote for. Gosh, I can't even believe that was alive and well then, much less now. So let's take a look at comments. Maxine Taylor did a midterm. No supporting planets for Dolt 45 at midterms, if memory serves me. Colleen, Mimi, could be voter repression here in New Jersey, a big movement to help seniors get there and others who can't drive. Mimi says, sorry about the weird long boxes, Facebook weirdness. Colleen says, angry people vote. So let's vote. Mimi says, just my feelings. There will be some states there will be recounts and cloudy due to voter repression and or hacking. So very possible. Every step counts for sure, Colleen says. Colleen also said, well, those men are sadly mistaken in thinking women have no power. Women are sadly mistaken if they think they have power by doing things the same way that the men have always done it. Take a word to the wise here, right? Women achieved enormous power in ancient Egypt, but what they did with it was ridiculous. They took it and used it to prop up the patriarchy. For better or worse, that's what they maybe had to do. We don't have to do that. We can use our own minds. Let's see. This feels like our beginning steps for the divine feminine. Every step counts. Absolutely. And it's going to be a rocky road. No doubt in my mind. 2019's art astrology proves it to me over and over again. Every month that I write, I know, oh my gosh, we are in for it. But we have to stand our ground. We're going through this no matter what. We don't have a choice to not go through the times in the future, but it's what we do during these times that count. Colleen says, I forget who I heard say this, but white women support patriarchy because it makes them feel safe and secure. I think it was this week's podcast. Tell me it's going to be okay. I would say that's a possibility for some women. Mimi says, on the flip side, we have Warren, Harris, and Hirano, more stepping forward. Suzanne says, back to grandma. Maybe I'll be back or I'll watch later. Sounds so interesting. Mimi says, wondering when might have been the last time the divine feminine was in place. About 2,500 years ago. Maybe even a little bit longer. right? When we came out of, I have one day, maybe I'll reprise my talk that I used to do in breaking down the Mayan calendar, because it so clearly shows the shifts that humanity goes through consciousness wise, and how the last golden age would have been a time where feminine energy held sway. And then, we get into the patriarchy. And it's very, I think I want to say about 400 BC, maybe. One day I'll resurrect that for everybody. The article is fascinating. And I would just say, everybody, please read it. Just, get that in your mind so that you who have the power can talk to your elected leaders. You can push for what it is that we really want. All right. Questions, anybody? Linda. Good morning, Linda. Sorry I'm late. L always voted for me. I'm not sure what that means. Lots of households are like that. My mother was demanding we all vote for Trump. I think my dad lied to her and she's still mad at me. You know, there were two things that puzzled me about the election. One was the number of women who voted for Trump. Two was the number of highly spiritual people who voted for Trump. I will never get over that. To me, it was just like things that make you go, huh? And it was true. So true. And I wonder how many of those people voted for Trump because it was a vote against Hillary. I mean, I don't know. But I'm still puzzled that people support this man. I don't know. I don't know I would love to have a conversation with someone one time that could be without rancor and without, just to clue me in. Why do you support this man who's very obviously misogynistic, who very obviously dodges the laws at every moment that he can, who uses people to his advantage and then drops them off the face of the earth at the first sign of a problem, who is a 2-year-old tyrant? He is literally, in my mind, I see him as a Hitler kind of person. And the amount of people that give away their power to this guy astounds me. It astounds me literally today. And, of course, I have to look at that as to what does that mean for me personally? Like how did I participate in the creation of this kind of person that could rise to the power on the coattails of people that feel disenfranchised? The white male patriarchy. Same thing happened, the in Hitler's time. He used what was going on against the white people in the country to his advantage. And instead of creating inclusivity and making everybody, available to have everything, he made it an us versus them. And what do you think Trump has done? I think he just took a page right out of Hitler's playbook, because I think in his mind, he wanted to be a dictator. He fancies himself a dictator. It's craziness. And it's crazy the number of people that follow him in that same kind of energy. It just blows me away. So it's hard for me to understand that. It's hard for me to understand that in the scope of our evolving into being more conscious human beings. I get it. We needed change. And maybe that's all he was, as the harbinger of change. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that that was the outcome, if it is bringing us the change through the ridiculousness of his presidency for us to come to our senses, perhaps. Maybe that was the purpose of it. I don't know. But I tell you, it's been a crazy few years, hasn't it? And this election is going to be the first salvo in a course correction. It's very clear. And I think there's still struggle yet to be had. Certainly the astrology backs that up over the next few months, next couple of years. All right. So I hope I didn't offend anybody with my politicizing there for the short term. I think most of you here understand, where I'm coming from with this, the frustration of seeing us try to go backwards instead of going forward. and it's craziness. Colleen says my ex mother-in-law grew up in Nazi Germany. She hates Trump because he reminds her of Hitler. Yeah. Ginger says 7 different minds, the shadow selves. That's why. Absolutely. I'm with you there. It was such a WTF moment. So many people told me they couldn't vote for Clinton. I get that. Ginger, 7 brains, and shadow selves. Definitely. Definitely. It was definitely the shadow that was speaking at that point in time. So lots of juicy, juicy things for us to think about here. I do see that there is cooler heads prevailing, calmer seas perhaps prevailing in this, but I don't, to use the word calm is sort of calmer heads, cooler heads prevailing, but does it make for calmer seas? Possibly not. Not in the short term, but over the course of the long term, yes. As long as the women who do get elected to power don't become just the puppets of the patriarchy, that they really stand up for equality and gender equality, racial equality, and stand up for the values that we have, the core values that we have as a country and as women, feeding our children, educating our children, making healthcare available to everyone, and leveling the playing field in some respects. Okay. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope everybody understood the talk. I left the drawing and the chart up on my Living-Astrology Facebook page so everybody can get a hold of that. The link is there also in the chat for this is the link to that article in Time Magazine. This just happens I found it on Yahoo, even though Time actually sent it to me via phone. So you can find that article and read it. It is pretty fascinating. And for the most part, that's it for me today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a great weekend. Don't forget, if you had volunteered for the weekly astrology test, I will send you that video or that graphic for yourselves in email when I get done here this morning. All right. Take care, everybody. See you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.